Hello again, everyone. I am back to do some reading with you. This week's article is titled The Science of Tearjerkers: Why We Love It When Movies Make Us Cry by Reilly. This was written October 18th, 2018. Here we go. Each year, millions of people pay their hard-earned money to watch movies that will make them cry. Some plays and novels are famous for drawing out the waterworks. Don't get us started on where the red fern grows. But movies seem to have our tear ducts on speed dial. We spoke with experts to learn how weepies get to us and why audiences find them so appealing. So while we're doing this recording, I'm going to pause every once in a while and make sure that we're understanding what we're reading. So many of you may not have even heard of this story, Where the Red Fern Grows, but it is an old book that has been turned into a movie, and it's very, very sad. If you haven't read it or seen it, you should definitely look it up. It's kind of a classic. All right, so we're talking about how come movies make us cry. So here we are at this next subheading, separating fiction from reality. If any of you don't remember, fiction basically means imaginary, made up. So separating the made up from reality. In the 19th century, the poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge claimed that effective fiction relied on a willing suspension of disbelief. That is, in a theatrical scenario, right? Movie, theater, theatrical. The audience has to juggle two incongruent thoughts. Wait a minute. What does incongruent mean? What does incongruent mean? Do you guys know that word? So incongruent just means two things that don't go together. They're not compatible with each other. So two incongruent thoughts. I know these people are on the stage just pretending, but I'm pretending this is real anyway. So those two thoughts don't really go together in the mind. Coleridge also argued that this unspoken contract between artists and audiences makes acting seem believable, and it makes the audience emotionally vulnerable. All right. Moving on, Dr. Jeffrey Sachs, a professor of psychological and brain sciences at Washington University in St. Louis, and author of the book Flicker, Your Brain on Movies, argues that Coleridge had it backward. So this Dr. Jeffrey Sachs is actually against what Samuel Coleridge, who we just read about, is talking about with the suspension of disbelief. Here's a quote that follows by Dr. Jeffrey Sachs. You know it's just a movie, but large parts of your brain don't process that distinction, he writes. This makes sense because our brains evolved long before movies were invented, and our perceptual systems are honed to deal with the problems posed by the real world. Our brains didn't evolve to watch movies. Movies evolved to take advantage of the brains we have. All right, is there anything in that paragraph that we don't understand? Definitely, if I'm not talking about it, make sure you look up any of these words that you don't get. So right here, let's just make sure we remember our perceptual systems. A word that is connected to that is perceive, right? So when we perceive, we're taking in information. This is how we're aware of our environment. So our perceptual systems, the way we perceive things, are honed to deal with the problems posed by the real world. All right, moving on here. As Sachs tells Mental Floss, this is the magazine that we are reading right now. It's an online science magazine. As Sachs tells Mental Floss, movies engage the algorithms already hardwired in our brains. When our nervous system confronts something in the cinema that looks and sounds real, Our brain will respond to it appropriately. It's the reason jump scares in horror movies work. You are experiencing a natural, uncontrolled biological response. All right, unconsciously, we roll along. These natural bodily responses happen all the time at the cinema. Just look at the audience's faces. According to Zaks, when a character frowns or smiles or laughs, the audience is likely to unconsciously imitate these responses. You guys know what imitating is, right? To imitate something is basically to copy it. When a character cries, your own facial muscles might involuntarily copy their expression. The tension can place pressure on your eyes and trigger your tear ducts to well up. This automatic mimicry response, what Zaks calls the mirror rule, is a relic of an old survival mechanism. Millennia ago, if you saw a group of cavemen running, it probably wasn't a good idea to investigate what they were running from. In this quote, rather, upon seeing others run, running should come first, automatically and immediately, and analyzing the situation should come later. Dr. Tanya Charland and colleagues explain in a chapter of The New Unconscious. So this here is blue. This is an option if you wanted to go see this oxfordscholarship.com link to support that. You can go there. But we're going to keep moving on. But because the face is the most noticeable part of the body, it's the most susceptible to this automatic mimicry response. According to Chartrand, a professor of marketing, psychology, and neuroscience at Duke University, it's part of everyday life. If you smile at an infant, the baby might smile back. Yawn at a friend, around a friend, and your friend might yawn too. Sit at an interview and scratch your forehead, and your interviewer might begin scratching their forehead. The phenomenon has even been observed to occur at levels that are impossible to detect with the naked eye. In one study published in Psychological Science, researchers showed test subjects pictures of neutral faces. Just before the neutral face appeared, a happy or sad face flashed quickly onto the screen. The test subjects failed to consciously detect the happy and sad faces, but their brains did, as shown by the involuntary twitching of their facial muscles. All right, good filmmakers have been hijacking this evolutionary quirk for more than a century. Our imitation of emotions we see expressed brings vividness and effective tone into our grasp of the movie's action. So what does that mean? Let's make sure that we understand what that means. So good filmmakers have been hijacking this evolutionary quirk for more than a century. What's the evolutionary quirk we're talking about? That's up here. It's the mirror rule, right? I've also heard it personally connected to the idea of mirror neurons in our brain. If we see somebody scratch a certain part of their body, we want to scratch that part of our body. If somebody gets angry with us, it's our kind of automatic to become angry in response. So that's the evolutionary quirk that's being discussed here. And vividness, if you don't already know that word, vividness means a clear effect. It makes something, an image in your mind, more clear, powerful, or strong. And then effective tone means that you feel more emotionally involved. It feels more like you're really there in the movie's action and in the movie's emotions. This according to psychologist Hugo Munsterberg, and he noted it in his 1916 book, The Photoplay, which is widely considered the first work of film criticism. We sympathize, he says, with the sufferer, and that means the pain in which he expresses becomes our own pain. All right, supernormal stimuli, the next section here. Just because your face might mimic an expression you see on the screen doesn't automatically mean you'll feel that specific emotion. It does, however, boost your chances. Functional MRI studies show that circuits in the emotional brain can be activated by watching emotional expressions on the screen, Zachs writes. Movies have a habit of eliciting exaggerated emotional responses. The reason why can be best explained with herring gulls. Whoa, what does that mean? Do you guys even know what a herring gull is? Well, I didn't, so I went ahead and looked it up, and I have it right here. They're actually seagulls, and we're going to learn a little bit more, but take a peek here. These are the babies, and this is the mama seagull. Notice that little red dot? They all have a little red dot on their beak. All right, back to the article. In 1947, biologist Nicholas Tinbergen was observing the eating behaviors of nesting herring gull chicks, which beg for food by pecking at the parent's beak. Tinbergen performed an experiment feeding the birds with models that looked less and less like their parents. Surprisingly, Tinbergen discovered that the more unrealistic the model looked, the more the chicks exaggerated their pecking behavior. So what does it mean to exaggerate something? It basically means you're gonna make it bigger, you're gonna make it greater than it was before. So Tinbergen called this response, this exaggerated pecking behavior, supernormal stimulus. Put simply, this is my favorite part, exaggerated patterns can elicit exaggerated responses. The cinema is designed to assault your senses. Nothing in your evolutionary circuitry has prepared you for an encounter with a 30-foot tall faces. The dialogue, the color, the framing, the angles, and the editing can help exaggerate these stimuli even further, amplifying our unconscious responses. The combination of stimulus features that a movie presents can often be much more consistent, much stronger, and much more powerful than what we typically experience in the normal range, Zachs tells Mental Floss. With the conditions of film priming your body to react emotionally, all you need is for the actors to deliver on that special moment. The secrets to a good cry. If you ask somebody why they chose to watch a sad movie, they'll often say it improves their mood. This idea, which is known as the tragedy paradox, has baffled thinkers from Aristotle to David Hume. Why would somebody seek out a negative experience to feel better? Evidence suggests a good cry might be therapeutic. A 2008 review published in Current Directions in Psychological Science cited a study that evaluated 3,000 crying episodes and found that 60 to 70% of people reported feeling better after shedding tears. 1/3 reported no boost in mood, and 1 in 10 claimed to feel worse. When you ask people if they feel better after crying in general, most people say they do. Dr. Lauren Bilsma, a crying expert and assistant professor of psychology at the University of Pittsburgh, tells Mental Floss, but if you ask them about a specific crying episode, especially the closer you get to that episode, most people say they didn't feel better after crying. The more distance we put between ourselves and a specific crying episode, the more likely we might lie to ourselves about how beneficial it really was. A 2015 study in Motivation and Emotion found that respondents needed 90 minutes for their mood to bounce back after watching a tear-jerking film, or tear-jerking film clips. Crying is most therapeutic when the crier is surrounded by a strong network of supported people. Bilsma says, it also tends to be more beneficial when it forces people to reflect on the causes of their emotions. A 2012 study backs that up. Researchers at Ohio State University had 361 college students watch an abridged version of the film Atonement and discovered that people who found the movie saddest also came away from the experience feeling the happiest because the movie compelled them to reflect on their own relationships. Interestingly, the study showed that downward comparisons, selfish thoughts such as, at least my life isn't that bad, did not increase a viewer's pleasure. Tragedies don't boost life's happiness by making viewers think more about themselves. The study's lead author, Dr. Sylvia Knobloch-Westerwick, told Ohio State News, they appeal to people because they help them to appreciate their own relationships more. So, for those keeping a checklist, here's the secret to crying at movies and feeling good about it. Pick a heart-tugging film with lots of close-ups. Watch it in a controlled room and on a big screen that exaggerates the stimuli. And invite a handful of supportive friends. Lastly, find characters you can relate to and bring the popcorn. I sure hope this helps you understand and follow the science of tearjerkers, why we love it when movies make us cry. I look forward to discussing this article more on Wednesday when we get together. Make sure if you have any questions, you send a message on Remind or Google Classroom, and we'll help you out with that. Hope you have a great week. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.